Hi there, it's Denise Eckert from the Relaxation Lounge, and I love coming on here and sharing different tips and techniques to help you reduce the stress in your life. And today I've got an amazing woman. Her name is Angela Counsel, and what she does is she helps women who are going through perimenopause or menopause work out the symptoms and all the things that entails. So welcome, Angela.
Hello, Denise. It's great to be here all the way from down under. I am.
Exactly. The Canadian and the Aussie. So can you just tell us a little bit how you came into this work?
Okay, so I am a naturopath. I've been a naturopath now for nearly 20 years. And so I've always worked in women's health, hormones. And as I got to this stage of life, I kind of started to learn more about menopause, because when I was coming through menopause, I thought I knew it all. When I went to, college to learn to be a naturopath, they taught us about hot flushes, and that was kind of about it. I didn't realize there was so much more to hormones, to menopause, and it wasn't just all about hormones. I noticed a really big shift for me in the way I looked at the world. There was a lot of emotional changes. There was just a lot of changes. There were physical symptoms, there are emotional things. And that's when I realized that we're just not talking about menopause. Women are not talking about menopause. Most women come to this stage of life and they have no idea what to expect. They just hear the horror stories. But I did know some women who went through this time of life and things were really easy for them. I'm going, so what's the difference between what these women are doing and what the most women are doing? And that kind of set me on a bit of a journey to learn a little bit more. Now, I'm also a kinesiologist. I don't think do you guys have them over there? I'm not sure, but
yes.
We use muscle testing to determine what's going on with the body on a subconscious level. And I'm also a genetic-based personalized health coach. So we look at how your genes form who you are and how that impacts the way your body looks and feels. And it plays a big role in how you are going to come through menopause. And in the past, once again, I kind of would have said, oh yeah, genetics only pay about 10% when it comes to anything to do with menopause. And that's probably true. It is 10%, but it's actually the base 10%. And which is why it is so important, because from your genes, everything comes, because we need to be looking at how your genes are expressing themselves. And that's what we call epigenetic and the science of epigenetics. And I work in that space as well. So I kind of combined what I knew as a naturopath, so with the hormones, women's health, nutrition, what I knew as with the genetics, epigenetics, and then also on top of that, I put the emotional and the subconscious journeys that many women, the trauma that women have expressed, that start to come back out as they come through menopause, because we suppress a lot of stuff while we're busy looking after families and husbands and jobs and all of this. We can we can get away with it when we're younger, because our hormones are very protective. But as the hormones start to shift away, then all of a sudden, all this stuff, all this baggage starts to come up. And that's, for many women, it comes up in physical symptoms. So that's kind of why I work where I work and how I got here. That's a shortened version of how I got to where I am right now.
So most of my audience are women that are trying to reduce the stress in their lives. And as you know, when we are under stress, and as you said, we put too much on our plates, and we do that constantly. And as women, we're really bad for that. We can do everything for everyone all the time and perfectly. Mm-hmm. How does stress affect our menopause or perimenopause? And how important is it to reduce the stress in our life?
Okay. Everyone thinks that perimenopause, menopause is all about hormones. And yes, hormones are playing a role, but we need to understand what is really going on. And this is where stress plays. And that's why I love what you're doing. Because when we're in our reproductive stage of life, we have hormones that are produced from our ovaries. And our eggs are, we're releasing an egg every month. Our body's being prepared for a pregnancy, and either gets pregnant or it doesn't. We have a period. And that's what, when we're in our reproductive years, that's what happens. The brain communicates with the ovaries. But as the ovaries start to shut down because we're losing our egg supply, the brain can just go, okay, well, there's nothing more coming from the ovaries. We're just going to stop this. What the brain does, it then rechannels its communication to the adrenal glands. And it starts telling the adrenal glands to produce the hormones that the ovaries are no longer producing. Now, we don't need as much hormone when we're not producing eggs every month and when we're not having a period every month. So we don't need as much hormones. So the adrenal glands have the ability to produce the hormones that are required at the level that will require it to get us through life. So to protect us, so to keep us with healthy heart, because everyone talks about we need to keep strong bones, we need to keep healthy heart, all of that, healthy brain. We do need all that, but the adrenal glands can actually make that hormone. Now, the problem is that most women, by the time they get, they're in their mid-40s, they get to this time of life, their ovaries are shutting down production and their adrenal glands are kind of flatlining because they are burnt out. And the adrenal glands, when it comes to making hormones, and I'm sure your listeners know this, makes in what you call noradrenaline, we call it adrenaline, and it makes cortisol, the stress hormones. And the body will make stress hormones first. It has a priority in making stress hormones because those hormones are required to keep us alive. We don't need reproductive hormones to keep us alive. We just need it to feel comfortable. So if we've only got limited resources because we don't have enough nutrition, we've got so much going on, what will happen then is the body will not make those hormones. So this is why, and we get symptoms. This is why managing your stress is the absolute core of being able to thrive in menopause. It is the underlying cause of, and I'm going to say, for me, I would say it's 100% of symptoms. Anything that you're experiencing when it comes to menopause has got a stress component, but let's just go conservative. 99.5% of the symptoms that you are experiencing are related to stress in some way, and whether or not that stress is to do with the food that you're eating, the way you're moving your body, the way what you're exposing your body to with toxins, your mindset, your emotions, all of that is stress. And we need to be able to find ways to manage that, because when you manage that stress, and look, you can't get rid of stress 100%, and I think we need to be really realistic about that, but there are things you can control. And you can control the way you react. You can control the way the things you do. You can't control the fact for the last 2 years, we've kind of been under, control of a virus that's been going on. Now, we can't control that, but we can control the way we react. And if whether or not you're in lockdown or you can't see family or whatever, it can be stressful, but you can find ways to work through that stress. So you're not getting rid of all the stress, but you're bringing that down. And the more you bring that down, the less load you have on your adrenal glands, the more it can then make those additional hormones that your body requires to keep you feeling comfortable and to keep your protection there. So yes, is stress playing a role in perimenopause and menopause? It is certainly playing a role. It is the biggest component.
Wow, that's the 99.5% is huge. Now, for someone listening here, what would some of the symptoms be? Because I know I've talked to a lot of women, and a lot of times it's unable to sleep. And then from there, you get the fatigue and the tiredness. Are there any other symptoms that you can share with us?
Well, I think the menopause societies in the world put out there's like 34 symptoms associated with menopause. But, there's hot flushes, there's mood swings, there's weight gain, there's night sweats, there's fatigue, there's a myriad of different symptoms that get blamed on menopause. And I don't like calling them menopause symptoms. I call them symptoms associated with menopause, because when we just say, oh, they're menopause symptoms, what we're doing is going, oh, well, it's menopause, there's nothing I can do about it. It's a symptom of menopause. Now, every woman's experience of menopause is different. So if it was a symptom of menopause, every woman that was going through menopause would get that symptom. So it's not a symptom of menopause, it's actually a symptom of stress. Because if we look at the symptoms that a woman are coming up with, and we look at what happens when you're highly stressed, you can actually see that there's a correlation between there. And also the other thing that we need to be looking at is what's going on with the thyroid, because the thyroid plays a role in this as well. And a lot of the symptoms that women experience can be also associated with low thyroid function. But once again, what causes the thyroid to go out of balance is diet and stress. So it always just keeps coming back to stress. Everything. I mean, apart from acute diseases where you get run over by a bus or something, your hand gets chopped off, I would say the majority of chronic diseases that we have in the world have got a very strong stress component, because we live in such a stressful world. And stress happens when our expectations don't meet our reality. And so many people have such different expectations as to what they want. And it's okay to have goals, dreams, and all of that. But when they get hung up on the expectations as opposed to this is how it is, that's when your stress happens. And when you start to accept reality, this today is exactly how it is as it is, then there can't be no stress about it, because you're just accepting that it is. And that is tough. It's taken me a long time to get here.
And the worst for that too. I mean, I do it to myself all the time. I have this wonderful plan, and I'm planning on getting this all done in 2 hours. Well, 8 hours later, I'm still fussing around, and at that point you're tired, and it just doesn't work like that. So now, what advice can you give women? How can they lower their stress?
Well, particularly when it comes to menopause, I think a lot of the stress around menopause for women is, number one, them not actually understanding what's happening, that things are changing and they don't really know what's going on. And because there's not a lot of information out in the world, many women feel lost. They feel confused. I know for me, and I knew about menopause, but I didn't know what it was going to be like when I got here. And so I think that's part of it. So it's like, the more you can, and the reason why I do what I do is to actually bring the conversation out. We need to be having this conversation as a normal conversation, not not it being something that we only talk about in dark corners and things like that. When we need to be talking about menopause, we need to be talking about this transition time from the time that we are young. This needs to be a conversation. It is just another stage of life for women, and rather than being ashamed of it, I think if the more we talk about it, and I talk about it, and there's people that don't like the way I speak about it, and they kind of tell me to stop talking about it, but we need to. It's really important, because when we do that, then it doesn't seem so scary. And the other thing with that too is that don't listen to all the scary stories, because there's people, and look, I know there are women who do it really, really tough. But it's a bit like, when you get pregnant, and everyone tells you their worst pregnancy and birth story. So you're terrified of giving birth because you hear all these horror stories. But then when you go through it, you actually realize, wow, that's an absolutely beautiful experience. But for some women, it's not that great. But we're not sharing the good stories. We're only kind of sharing the horror stories. And I want more women, and that's why I work with women and show them that there's a different way. I want more women out there going and saying, look, no, menopause is a great time of life. It's when I stepped into my wisdom. I truly owned who I was. I took responsibility for my health. Yes, I had a few symptoms to start with, but I managed it. I took control. I didn't want to be taking hormones and all of that. I learned how to manage my own health. That's what I want women to be saying. That's what I want them to be modeling. I want to see more women out there saying menopause is a great time of life, because if we can do that, then a lot of stress goes. But if you're already there, I'd say the first thing is just to, number one, accept that you are in menopause, and it doesn't mean that you are a shriveled up old prune. It doesn't mean that this is, that this is the end of your life. In fact, you're halfway through, and it's really great because you get a real reset. And this is what menopause is, a reset. And it's an opportunity at this time of life that if you haven't been doing so great with your health, and you haven't been looking after yourself quite so much with your health, and you've been able to get away with it in the past because you've had protection of hormones, now you don't have quite the same amount of protection. So now you actually make the choice. what is the next 40 years going to be like for you? And now you actually get to choose, rather than basically life choosing for you. So I actually see it as a great time of opportunity. And I think if women can see that and actually say, okay, well, this is a time for me to start looking after me and me creating the life that I want and how I want to live my life. And when we start to see that, I think when women start to actually realize that this is a time of opportunity, that it's not a time of loss. It doesn't mean that you're old and all that type of crap that goes on. Then I think that a lot of the stress goes. And then obviously you have to be looking at what food are you eating, how you're moving your body, what are you exposing your body to with toxins, what's your mindset, all of that. And look, that isn't rocket science. That stuff is not new. It's out there in the world. I've been teaching it for years. You probably teach it. Every other natural health practitioner has been teaching that. That is not new stuff. But the first is accepting that this is where you are in your life, accepting this is who you are. And that's a big part that I work with women when it comes to personalized health is, I kind of teach them based on their genes. This is what their body's like. And it also, they learn a little bit more about their personality and they start to accept who they are. And when they accept who they are, the stress of trying to be someone else goes away, because that's so for a lot of us. And it was my story as well, is like, we've been taught to be successful, we have to do certain things. So we kept doing those things. And if we didn't achieve those things, then we thought we were a failure. In fact, it wasn't that you're a failure. You just weren't designed to do it that way. Your brain wasn't designed to do that way. Your brain was designed to work in a different way. And when you can accept that, and so for me, it's perfectly okay for me not to be jumping out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning and going and doing this great boot camp and, rah, and not starting work until, 10 o'clock. That is perfectly okay, because that is exactly what my body needs. It needs a slow start. That's what it needs. But then someone else's body does need to be jumping out of bed. They do need to be moving. So when you can accept who you are, that then starts, that the stress just goes. The stress goes because you're no longer trying to be someone you're not meant to be. And that's a big part of the work I do. I work with women who are going through menopause, but it's really about them really learning who they are again, because we've lost ourselves. As we were growing up, we were taught how to be. We were taught how to be good girls. We were taught how to do this, and we went through school, and we were taught if we wanted to be successful, we had to be like men. And all of this, we were taught how to be. And then we had to be the perfect wife and the perfect mother, all of this. And now it's time for you to go, okay, I've done everything that you've told me to do. Now can I be me? And that's what I see is that this is the greatest gift that menopause gives you. And for us in this time, we as women, in this time of life, it's not the beginning of the end, because we're living so much longer. It is only halfway. It depends on how long you think you're going to live. I got to 50 and think, oh, well, I'm halfway. I'm going to live to 100. Okay, now I'm at 60. I'm a little bit over halfway. But I'm still thinking there's a good few years in there for me to be me. My kids, my last one's just about to finish school. So they're more independent. They're doing their thing. They're starting their own lives. My husband and I, we're still together, but we have our own lives. We do things together, but I'm very much now, this is what I do, because he's a different person. What he needs and how he entertains himself is totally different to how I do it. And we're okay. We don't have to be doing it together.
And that's the thing too, when you are, a mom, a wife, and all the responsibilities, it's difficult.
It is. And we lose ourselves.
Yes.
So many of the women I work with, that's what they say. I have lost myself.
Yeah.
I don't know who I am anymore, besides mum, partner, business owner, employee. I don't know who I am anymore. And when women start to find themselves, it's just amazing. It just brings the stress. And then once you bring the stress down, symptoms go. Yes, I work with women on the symptoms and stuff like that, and the weight and all of that. But the true stuff that I work with is them finding themselves and reconnecting back to their bodies, because we as women have been taught to be ashamed of our bodies. We've been taught to be ashamed of our cycles. And the fact that we bleed every month, and all of this shame that we've had. So we've disconnected and we've stopped listening, and we put food in our body that really doesn't make us feel that great, but we continue to put it in there because we're not listening to the messages from the body, which says, every time you put that in there, it upsets my stomach. But you get a stomach ache so often it just becomes normal, so you stop even thinking about it and you just keep putting that food in. We're not listening to our body. Our body speaks to us, and if you got symptoms going on, there's a reason. The body is trying to tell you something, and generally it's to do with inflammation, it's to do with insulin resistance, but that comes from stress. It's food stress, environmental stress. And the body is it's just so fantastic in the way it can speak to us and the messages it sends, but we're not listening. And there's so much we can do. And, rather than worrying about how am I going to fix the stress of my job, which sometimes you have no control over, what you've got control over is how much water am I going to drink today? You put water into your body and you hydrate your body, you've immediately reduced the stress on your body, because your body needs, the body is 70% water, the brain is 90% water. If you're dehydrated, the brain is not working. It's stressed. So simply by drinking water is going to reduce stress. And then by putting foods in there, lots of vegetables, eating lots of vegetables. And you don't have to be a vegetarian. You can still have proteins and things like that. And different foods will work better for different bodies depending on your genetic type. But, ideally women need to eat more vegetables because most of them are not eating enough, unless they're vegetarian or vegan, but the majority of women are not eating enough vegetables. So I'm going to say double the amount of vegetables you're eating if you're the average woman, because you're not eating enough, just double that. And that actually, the best thing about that, not only does it clean up the digestive system, reduce stress in the gut, it also balances hormones, because plant foods have what are known as phytohormones, phytoestrogens, phytoprogesterones. So these are plant-based hormones which will actually enhance our natural hormones. So we eat these plants, it'll actually help to balance our hormones. So lots of seeds do that, lots of vegetables do that. And, and there's specifics, you can get specific, or you could just increase plant foods in your diet and you're automatically reducing stress, allowing your gut to work, getting your bowels moving and balancing hormones. Triple whammy all at once. And losing weight too, probably.
I love that. And really, it's just becoming authentic with yourself.
Yep.
And listening to yourself and trusting what your body is telling you. And it's funny, I have this love-hate relationship with eggs. And, sometimes you just have an egg and my stomach will not tolerate just having an egg. But then there's days where I crave eggs and my stomach's fine with the egg. Like it's just, okay, so today I need an egg, but I've run out of eggs because I went through a month where I couldn't eat them. So now I got to run to the store and go buy eggs. And the craving is just so strong. It's something, I need eggs.
Yep. And you just listen.
Yeah.
And that's it. And sometimes we can just get into the habit, and I'm very much, this is one of my things. It's like I get in the habit and I eat the same things over and over and over again. So every single day I basically have the same meals, but I also know the best foods for me. So based on my genetics, so I eat the foods that are more beneficial for me. So and based on my genetics as well, it's also, that is my genetic type, is that basically once I get into a routine, I will just stick to it. So, so I tend to eat the same thing all the time, but other people do need that variety. And once again, it's based on their genetics, is that they need to be having things differently. But your body will tell you, if we listen and we're truly listening, and we're not listening to our head, which says, oh, have a chocolate donut, because your head might be saying that as you're looking at whatever that what is that, Krispy Kremes or something, you're going, oh, well, your head's going, oh, I want that. Now, what's your body telling you? Because there's part of you when you look at that chocolate donut that says, well, actually, I know that when I eat that, it's going to feel really good right now. But in half an hour's time, in an hour's time, I'm going to feel so sluggish. It's going to feel heavy in my gut, and I'm going to feel so guilty. It's like, so, okay. And if you do want it right now, but and you kind of weigh up, well, this is the consequences. This is what's going to happen. If I have it, weigh them up. then you make a conscious choice to eat it, go ahead and eat it, but then don't feel guilty about it. It's like, it's being conscious and actually making conscious choices rather than, this mindless eating which goes on with women. It's like they just kind of take this mindless eating all of the time. And, if you ask them half an hour later, what did you eat? And they probably say, oh, I can't remember, because they just whatever was there.
Yeah, it's so true. So we're going to wrap things up. Are there any final words you'd like to share with the audience?
The main message that I want all women to know is that menopause is your opportunity to step into and create the life that you want for the next half of your life. It's not a time of struggle. It's a time for you to truly embrace who you are and to know that this is the beginning of your wise women years. And when you step into who you are and you live your authentic self and you live the best version of yourself, you are showing the women who are coming behind you what is possible. You become the wise woman, you become the leader. And that's what I want for every single woman who is going through this stage of life right now, because we are lacking wise women in our communities. We need more of them, and we need them to be stepping up and really showing up for those who are behind us. That's my message.
Well, thank you so much, Angela. So I will be placing Angela's contact information in the show notes. So feel free to reach out and find out more of what she does. Is there anything that you can give the audience right now?
Look, if anyone wants to pop over to my website, which is just www.angelacounsel.com, there is a link to an ebook called The Secret to Getting Rid of Your Menobelly, because that's kind of the biggest issue that women talk about when it comes to menopause. And within that, I start to touch on what genetic-based personalized health is and what the different health types are. So that's kind of where I start to introduce that concept. So if they want to learn a little bit more about that, they can go there. And then after that, if they want, I've just finished it. There'll be another one in 10 weeks, a free workshop called The Secret to Thriving in Menopause Workshop. But they'll get that link within the ebook or once they're on my database anyway, when the next round comes around. So, because I honestly, last night just finished this round of that workshop. So I run them every 10 weeks. But yeah, just go to my website, jump onto that, get the ebook, and then you'll start to get some information from me.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate all the great information you've shared with the audience, and have a lovely afternoon or morning.
It's been great being here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. If you're looking for more ways to reduce the stress in your life, please visit www.therelaxationlounge.info. Here I've got access to a free Facebook page where you can get support, information on the podcast where I interview different individuals who share their techniques to help you reduce your stress, plus a membership that you can join where you can come and do stress reducing practice on demand anytime you need to reduce the stress in your life and create more happiness in your world. I'll see you in the lounge.